I'll advise that person to set really high standard for team and keep it consistently. Because in the end, it's not the product that matters. Because businesses, startups change their product, their business model a lot, and they experiment with that. But having really great is key to success.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that has grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Tigran Nazaryan, or as close as I can to pronouncing it right. So Tigran is a quick background, got a degree, I think, in physics and a PhD in astronomy, if I'm correct. Came back to an engineering degree after that. Started creating WordPress plugins as a software company, and so he started out with 3 roommates while he was finishing his PhD, doing that as a business. And then the business evolved to be a subscription-based model, and then a software as a service or SaaS business. That took about 3 or 4 years to get to that rate or that phase. And Tigran started out as the developer, then as VP of engineering, and now as CEO. So, with that much as a quick or brief introduction, welcome on the podcast.
Thank you, David. I appreciate
Absolutely.
the opportunity to talk about invention, technology, and business.
So absolutely. So now I've given kind of a quick run through to a longer journey. So why don't you take us a bit back in time and how your journey got started with physics and astronomy, and then we'll chat from there.
Okay, great. So one may ask what has it common with startups and business, but there are actually a lot of things that shape you from the school years, and this is my journey. I loved physics, I loved math in high school, and I chose this as my profession, as my later major study. So I learned physics in university, and first I didn't thought much about whether I will be inventor or businessman or technology or business person, but at least I always thought about myself as a person who loves technology, who loves invention, and who loves science. So science is kind of frontier, the edge for the invention. We base all our inventions on the latest, if we can, on the latest scientific knowledge. So I always liked the latest one, the scientific knowledge. And this was where I added myself into.
So you get into, so you do physics as an undergraduate and then PhD in astronomy. Now, so that one, those ones at least make sense. You said kind of the overarching is science and kind of interest in that realm. Now, I think if you mentioned as you were going through and getting your PhD, you also had kind of 3 roommates that were starting a business doing WordPress plugins, if I remember right. So how did you kind of get involved with that? What did you, because that sounds like, it's almost more in engineering or software. So did you have a background, or was it more they said, hey, you might find this enjoying, or you were looking for a part-time job, or kind of how did you get going with your roommates to do WordPress as you were getting a PhD in astronomy?
And naturally, with our college mates, we were during the first, second years, we were doing some websites, like web development, but during the time it turned into a full-time job when we thought not about building like one-time projects, websites, but creating our own products. So this was like a next level for us, creating software. And at that time, 10 years ago, WordPress was on its rise. It is popular, more popular, of course, now, but it was always on its rise since its beginning. So we thought about WordPress and creating software for WordPress ecosystem, which is plugins and templates. So it was kind of natural for us. A lot of students in our country, I'm based in Armenia, a lot of students in our country, tech students, they have a kind of second job with software engineering or web development or that industry. So, and it's natural that at some point you need to decide whether you want to continue in science, you want to go become scientist, or you want to become engineer. But for some, it may be kind of boring when you compare engineering with science, because science looks interesting and promising, and it is. But engineering, when done properly, when done with enthusiasm, passion, and it's really interesting. It's not doing like standard stuff, but it comes close to being inventor, and this is what is the beauty of engineering.
So now one question following. So I think you started to touch on it and, found that interesting, but now when your roommates started up this business, did they approach you and say, hey, we want you to be on board? Did you say, hey, this looks really interesting, I'd love to participate? Or kind of, how did you get involved? It sounds like they kind of had the original idea for the WordPress plugins as it was kind of coming to be of interest and catching rising as far as people doing those. But kind of, how did you get involved with the roommates as far as kind of what was that how did that transition?
I would say it was not my idea that people approached, but we are four friends. We studied together, and during these years, it was kind of natural that we thought about doing something together. So we were four people. Later, some other engineers joined. Not our college mates, I would say, but friends, through referrals, through our common friends. We tried to have the best team possible, and we actually succeeded in that. I mean, here is an important point. Being a roommate or being a college mate, it doesn't automatically mean that you should involve someone in the same project, because hiring slow, firing fast. One needs to consider that, especially if you work together with a person who is your friend, who is not only a business person, and it's not only working relation. You need to think twice before working with a person who may not stay for long, because it's important to keep balance between like working and relations and
I think there's definitely working with friends can be beneficial in the sense that you know them, you already have a relationship, you know their strengths. Exactly. On the other hand, once you're done with work, you're still seeing your friends, you're still going to hang out. If you're roommates, you're still living together. And so it does add that kind of added layer of pressure onto the business relationship, because you don't have that, this distinct break in the relationship where you take those breaks. So no, one question. So you got into this, you kind of got in with the roommates, you started the business. It was originally WordPress, if I don't get tongue-tied, plugin. Now, as you do that, you're finishing up your PhD. As you finished up your PhD, or maybe you're still working on the PhD, and I guess I didn't verify that. But as you're finishing that up, was this evolving into what would be a full-time job, a side hustle, kind of something that you think would be interesting but not going to pay the bills? Or you're saying, hey, no, this is really where I'm going to focus my time and effort as I'm looking to graduate?
Yeah, after doing my PhD, I made at some point a lifetime choice whether I should still try to do some science or completely be involved in the industry and engineering. I chose the second one, and I don't regret about that. So after that, full time it was, of course, and yeah, during the years we got a lot more experience, and we set up different processes, and we started to build a bigger company.
So it sounds like, okay, you decide I'm going to be all in, this is going to be my full-time endeavor. I still have my other degrees and maybe I'll circle back to those at some point, but right now I'd love to focus on this. I think it's a fun business. Now, as you guys do that, I think you guys started as just creating the plugins and then, having people subscribe or otherwise purchase them. And then you guys evolved the business first into a subscription-based business and then into a SaaS business. So what kind of prompted that evolution, or kind of what prompted that change over the period of time after you guys got started?
First, when we started plugin business, we didn't consider it as startup. It's just business in IT. And of course, we wanted to have growth. Wanted to have more customers, and it's natural. Mm-hmm. But startup requires a different mindset, totally growth-oriented and goal-oriented. So we thought, can we go behind WordPress plugins to create something even more important and more usable? So for that purpose, we closed our business with plugins and we started anew by setting our focus on fast growth and setting our focus on providing better value than just a couple of plugins, a better value. Although we didn't have a couple of plugins, we have more than 50 plugins, but we thought about creating a platform where people can create the websites for themselves and their customers as well, and from A to Z, which should contain hosting, should contain different infrastructure for optimizing websites, for backups, and even maintenance after website creation. So we thought about going big, and we thought about the solution which can be really helpful to WordPress community.
So now, as you kind of think about, this is how we, offer better value, better enticing customers, better position ourselves, and you started to evolve to those different models. Were they beneficial? Were they in the right direction? Were they more difficult? Or kind of tell us a little bit about how that part of the journey went, because I think that leads kind of where you're at today as far as with the business and what you guys are doing. So how has that evolution gone?
Yeah, exactly. This part of the journey is very important because when you have some idea in mind, you want to create exactly according to your idea, but a lot of learning comes later when you see how people use your product, what are their real needs, not what you thought, but what they need. So at some point we thought about a lot of components in the platform as being usable, and they are usable. But during the time we figured out that there are some parts which are more important, and some features and some experience which is more important, and because it solves some pain points for web developers and web agencies. So we put our focus on that. This is the way you can create more useful product which solves really some pain points of customers, and not some solution doing everything. People don't need everything. People need just specific thing to solve their specific problem. And we created our hosting platform in, I think, 2 years, during 2 years, with a team of less than 10 engineers. And during that time, we experimented a lot. And even now, we always continue experiment to figure out what's the best solution for the customer, what we should spend more time improving, and what we should cut and just remove from our business and solution. And we did actually that step several times.
So
To
now
keep
that-
focus, you need to get rid of some components. You'll need less.
No, and I think that, there's oftentimes there's a temptation to overbuild or to build more because, you get almost wrapped up in a lot of the technology, a lot of the cool things that you could do rather than focusing on the things that will drive the revenue, drive the clients and what they are actually wanting. So I definitely think there can be that trade-off where you're always having to guard against doing that. Now, so that kind of gives us an idea. So now taking that as the next step, where does that put you at today? Kind of where you guys are at? Are you still building? Are you still doing the SaaS model? You're now kind of took or evolved now into the CEO role. So kind of where are you guys at today and kind of looking a bit into the future? Where do you see things headed?
We are in a stage of growth now. We think we get the product and we have product to market fit. So we are in a growth stage. We are SaaS. We kept that business model with trial, subscription with trial. And we have some things to do to not only, I would say, only please customers, but essential parts we need to add to platform experience. For example, for a person creating websites professionally, an important feature, an important experience is managing their own clients because they don't build for themselves. So this is part we are working on now, and we hope we'll get it soon. And another important part of our platform and our solution is AI Site Builder. This is truly revolutionary technology, allowing people to create websites using the artificial intelligence. And this is innovative solution. There is no other solution like that. And we experiment with that. We think it can be useful not only for consumers, for people creating websites from themselves, but also for agencies and professional people who make their living by creating websites as a tool to create templates and prototypes and even complete websites in an automatic way to save their time and their resources. So we think about this, and we think we see the perspective of the site building platforms and site building experience as something that can be automated and that should be automated. People spend a lot of time doing manual work there. Most of websites, they are created manually. They are not generated by algorithms. And we see there a great potential for automation, the same way like AI penetrates in other technologies and in other industries. We see web development as the industry which should be automated. This is our vision, and automation means doing less manual routine work, but focusing more on more creative and more meaningful stuff.
Well, sounds like a fun direction to be headed and a lot of opportunity ahead of you. So now with that, as we kind of have taken a bit through your journey all the way from, getting the degree now to being the CEO of the company, it's a good transition. I always ask 2 questions at the end of each journey, so we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
What's the worst decision and the best decision?
Just the worst decision, and what did you learn from it?
Okay. The worst decision was I spent with my team more than a year to creating one software, which we never released later. We had 6 or 7 engineers spending 1 year to that solution. Why it went wrong? Because we didn't figure out, didn't thought about beyond creating a product. I mean, it's not only engineering, it's also part of, okay, you created solution. Can you find market to it? Can you have enough resources to support it, to stay ahead of competition? And mistake, my worst decision was that I lead that project without thinking too much about the future, and also without thinking about focus, because the same team, they were doing different project as well. These projects were critical for us. So it was a waste of time and resources. But I draw a lesson from that focus is really important. Better to do one thing really good, really well, something that your customers will love absolutely, rather than 1,000 things that none of them is completely or not perfect, but if not much usable, I would say.
No, and I think that, that is a good point. It's kind of what we touched on a little bit earlier, in the sense of having that focus of, hey, this is the product, we're going to do it very well, we're going to understand it. I'm probably the same thing of, I always like, oh, there are all these different possibilities, we could do all these cool things, and we can, change all these things. And so you get excited about a lot of different areas in technology, which isn't bad, and that's how you keep innovating and keep creating new products. But when it gets to the detriment of, now you lose focus, and you're doing those products that are maybe good next generation, or things that you can do in the future at the expense of doing something well now, it can be detrimental. Exactly. So I definitely think that makes sense. So now the second question I always ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Let me think a couple of seconds. I'll advise that person to set really high standard for team and keep it consistently. Because in the end, it's not the product that matters, because businesses, startups change their product, their business model a lot, and they experiment with that. But having really great is key to success. And this is what I'm proud of, having a great team at Tanvet.
No, I think that is a great piece of advice, and that definitely something that people should take to heart. Well, now as we wrap up with the podcast, people want to reach out to you. They want to use your SaaS or service. They want to help or need help with plugins. They want to be a customer. They want to be a client. They want to be an investor. They want to be an employee. They want to be your next best friend. Any or all of the above. What's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, and find out more?
Feel free to contact me through LinkedIn, or check our products, or contact even at Facebook.
All right. Well, definitely, it sounds like a lot of different places to connect on the socials, and definitely find out more. So, and I think you also have the website, web10.io. Is that right?
Web.io. Right.
10web. I said web10. 10web.io. So, well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, find out more. If you need help in this area or have any other questions about Tigran's journey, definitely reach out. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we would love to have you. Feel free to apply to be on the show. You can just go to inventiveguest.com. Two more things as listeners. One, make sure to click subscribe in your podcast player so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so other people can find out about all of our awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. Thank you again, Tigran, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you very much, David.